Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today on this podcast. My name is Melissa Hughes and I run the Australian Natural Nanny Network. And what I'm bringing to you is the first part of a 4-part podcast series that is really very much in response to what we're experiencing collectively right now in our lives and on the planet. And really my intention in bringing this together is to connect us with our sense of purpose and our vision for the future. So it seems to be this is something that a lot of people are being challenged with, grappling with at the moment. And there can be a bit of a sense of fear or hopelessness as we're being challenged to stay connected with how it is we want to be living our lives and what it is we want to be creating for ourselves and our families. As well as bringing you very practical tools to support you in navigating what you're experiencing here and now in our day-to-day lives. So we're all going to be sharing with you tools that we're been implementing ourselves to navigate these challenging but also exciting times, and the opportunity for you to feedback as well what you're experiencing. And what you've been implementing. So today I'm joined by 2 amazing individuals who share a common vision for humanity. They're very passionate in their work, respectively, of working with early childhood in a way that's very holistic and connected and natural. So I'll introduce them both to you. I just want to check in about is my audio and my visual still okay? Awesome. Let me know if I freeze or anything like that. So firstly, I have Carol from Heart Spaces. Her vision is in creating spaces of the heart where people can find their authentic way into developing as empowered, creative human beings. She uses artistic processes, movement, and imaginative explorations to unfold these potentials and nourishes learning communities between the people in the various courses that she runs. She works with parents, families, educators, and teams. And we also have Jake, who's joining us from Sacred Place Homeschool. Jake is a Steiner qualified primary school teacher, early childhood educator, and sensitive sleep consultant. He's also the father to 3 and runs a family daycare and playgroup in Melbourne. Jake has been working with Carol for the past 7 years since completing the Nourishing Early Childhood course that Carol runs through Heart Spaces. So thank you both so much for joining me today to have this very important chat and discussion.
Lovely. Thank you, Melissa. I'm so happy to be here and happy to be with Jake and you.
Yeah. Thanks, Melissa. It's great that you're hosting this and driving this initiative forward. It's really lovely to have that energy behind us. Thank you.
That's okay. Where I thought we would start today is what I noticed throughout my 15 years of working with children in education and as a nanny and in different spaces, and as an auntie as well. When I'm out and about with children, I notice the way we operate at the moment as a society is not overly childhood friendly. And it's not conducive to childhood. We don't find a lot of the spaces we go are not friendly to what children need and where they're at and what supports them to nourish, to be nourished, to thrive. And especially even more so now with the playgrounds closed, and the restrictions we're seeing on a lot of communal spaces. What's your experience? Do you guys notice this as well?
Absolutely. I live opposite a park. And so actually I'm now sitting in my space where if I turn my screen, you can see that's my gate for my garage. And right across that little lane is a park. And so I have the opportunity of seeing people walking past all the time, children and so on. And I could probably do a whole graph of the trends over the last few months. And, one of the things I noticed with the first lockdown is that suddenly there were more fathers in the park, and it was actually beautiful to see families. And of course, the lockdown didn't restrict the numbers of people together or families, though the actual playground equipment was out of bounds, but lots of bikes and dogs. And so there was a kind of rejoicing in a way that parents were home. And I know that's not necessarily for everybody at all, but the park changed. And then with this next level 4 lockdown, it's been much scarcer. And there's no real feeling of joy in the park. It's kind of empty a lot of the time. And, you know, the big barriers around the playgrounds and so on, and mothers and fathers in masks. And I think it really muffles yourself as an individual. I know that a lot of parents have had problems with their children looking at them with masks on. And so, yeah, there's a real barrier in communication, in connection. I mean, and if you talk about child-friendly, Melissa, everything that has happened in this level 4 in terms of child-friendliness has become much less available. It's not a child-friendly environment for the most part. So, yeah, that's a bit of my picture. And I see people walking with their shoulders slumped more. I feel the depression in people. I feel what you were saying, the loss of hope, a kind of hopelessness, a kind of am I doing the right thing? Is somebody looking at me? Let me not look at anyone just in case. You know, I'd really get that feeling. Yes, so it is pretty concerning.
Yeah, likewise for me. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Do you mind muting for a bit, Carol? Okay, thank you. That's better. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I've felt the layers of oppression come down upon us, and with each layer, you know, I try and stay positive and weave through it. So you know, we had the playgrounds closed. So what we did is we made a playground in our laneway. So I run a family daycare from our home, and you know, we have up to 4 children every day, and then we had some school-age children too. So there was between 7 and 10 children in our home, in our house every day since April. And yeah, so we created a playground in the laneway, and that was our, you know, the thing that we could do to navigate the playgrounds being closed, and that was really great fun. But then we actually found that we had noise complaints from our neighbors, because we were doing, every day we do a circle time, we do songs, and we play instruments, and I was playing a little bit more. I was trying to, you know, record some of the music and share it with other families who might not be able to come over. And so we started getting noise complaints from our neighbors who respectfully, they were homeschooling. So, you know, the children are in year 11 and they're homeschooling. They're trying to do the Zoom thing, and they're stressing out, and we're singing songs and playing tambourines next door. So that was another layer of oppression. So we did songs inside, and then but we kept on getting these complaints, and because of the way they were playing outside, and they were playing dinosaurs or whatever it was. So there was just another layer where we had to say, okay, guys, can we be sleepy dinosaurs? You know, as every time we're trying to navigate this, but at the same time that we were getting these noise complaints about the children, what really sort of broke my bubble was they were doing renovations next door. You know, I think if you follow the financial stimulus, then people have been given more money to do renovations. There were some renovations next door, and there was an angle grinder going off like this. And at the same time, we were getting complaints about children laughing and playing and singing songs. But the angle grinder, no, that's fine. Renovations on houses, jackhammers, you know, garbage trucks, that's okay. But you know, children singing or playing or running around having fun, no. So, and that really hurt me, because I'm, you know, every day I'm trying to provide this, you know, a utopian vision or experience for the children. And every day since April or March even, it's just been getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and harder to find the flow, you know, the path to keep the flow happening. So Yeah, I mean, in stage 4 now, there aren't any children coming over, which has been a welcome reprieve, actually, because it's a beautiful time to take stock, take a breath, and then revision. And that's what we're talking about today, revision how we can move forward, keeping the dream alive. And that's what I'm excited to talk with you guys about today.
Amazing. Thank you both for sharing what you've been experiencing and where you're at. And that really drives it home to me for how even more important it is what we're working on. And not just us, there are many others out there who hold hope, even if they've had that challenge through this time, who hold hope and a vision for a better planet for the children, specifically for the children, because they're literally the future. And I feel like you talked about having complaints about children expressing themselves, just highlights what, how I feel that the world has become not child friendly. And I wonder if it is because of, which we're going to go into a little bit, there's a beautiful process that Carol is going to take us through of reconnecting with ourselves. But I wonder if a large part of it is because we have become disconnected from that part of ourselves. So for me, my work with children, I feel so grateful for that, because that has allowed me to stay connected with that part of myself, with that inner child, and with that sense of play and expression and sense of humanity and all those amazing things that go with the innocence and the curiosity of childhood. Yeah. So did you want to take it from here, Carol?
Yes, because yeah, lovely. You stimulated so many thoughts. In my experience, if I can just share this with you, it really, if you can imagine being in South Africa, and if you were Black, your rights were whipped away from you on every level. And I worked a lot with teachers in, let's say, Black ghettos or areas where Black people had to live, and it was really, really hard. And then they went to school there being delivered a really autocratic education with a stick. The stick was there. You did it because the stick was there. And then when I worked for the department, there were new laws, and one of them was no more corporal punishment in schools. And that was a huge thing for people, where they felt we were taking away their power as teachers and parents. But what I also found was that, so you would think people are happy about that, and at last, there won't be this cruelty in a way and violence. People who were most afraid of change and really hated that were people themselves who were traumatized. And, you would think, well, surely it makes sense to you that if you had such a tough time visited on you when you were little, you wouldn't do that to children when you're an adult. And I asked people about it, because it really stunned me, about how can you forget what happened to you when you were little? And they said, well, it happened to me, and I don't see why they should get away with it. And I don't see why they should be different, because I suffered it, and why shouldn't they also? And so there was this incredible feeling of unfairness and injustice. And how come I got to suffer that and these guys go scot-free? In fact, they enjoy their learning. You want me to bring joy into the classroom? Are you crazy? It was a nightmare for me. Why should I do it for others when I didn't have it? So long story short, what I realized was that when people have a real problem with something like that, children playing, being expressive, sharing the wonder that they have for the world, this naive belief in goodness, it acts as a kind of confronting mirror as to what they don't have. And it's like, why the heck should you be all free? You free because I go and win them, get the money and pay for the rent that's puts the roof over your head, and you can just be, free and unfettered. And so I think a lot has to do with unacknowledged pain and trauma in adults who can't stand that reminder. It's not that they, that they have a real problem with the noise. It's that they have a problem with the reminder and the deficit in their lives. And it's painful. I mean, you can imagine how much joy we get just by being with children because we know it and we acknowledge it. Imagine if you're not allowing yourself to feel that. So you kind of experience more and more pain with the reminder of what you've lost, and the cynicism that you live in now prevents you from seeing that. So kind of when I realized that many years ago, I just felt so much compassion, whereas at first I was really angry and upset, and can't they see? And I just realized that this person needed to find their inner child and shed the tears and go through what they'd lost, acknowledge they'd lost that feeling, and really be, in a way, a parent to their own inner child and say, I'm so sorry, my dear child, that you had to go through this. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. You were little. You couldn't defend yourself. And I am now going to listen for you, and I'm going to listen out for you for what nourishes you truly and give it to you, whatever you missed. So I think that for me is like the turning point. So yeah, which is this kind of question about, can you even remember? All of us as children had one happy memory at least once, with one lovely person once, even maybe a grandfather or an auntie or a something. And I find it really helpful to go back in that space where you felt, I had this experience where somebody just loved me for who I was and acknowledged that I was a person, and where I felt free and I felt like I could just take a deep breath and say, it's all safe and it is as it should be. If we can get to a place like that, that's the little seed point to grow. Yeah.
Can I jump in? Yeah. Thanks, Carol. We discussed more about this process, of connecting with the inner child, and then how that looks in a bigger picture. Maybe there's a way where it can become a practice, a daily practice. And for me, when one of the key moments from my memory of this connection is just a simple situation where we were at a friend's house, and one of their friends, I was maybe 8 or 9, and this man was a friend of theirs, and I'm one of 6 kids, so there's always a lot of things to do for my parents, and there was very little time for them to sit down and read a story for one child, or even 2 or 3 even. There was always a baby in our house, and I was the second eldest, so there was always a baby around. But so this man, he sort of recognized that. He was like, oh man, there's 6 kids in this family. The thing I can do, I can bring that they might have had is I'll sit down. He took 3 of us downstairs, and he sat down and he started reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the first book, and that's a bip book. So usually as a parent now, if you're reading a bedtime story, you kind of go for the shorter one, maybe the short chapters. So you're not there all night. You just a quick story before bed. But this guy went for the whole book, and he started reading, and he was probably reading to us for about 2 hours, straight. And sometimes we were listening, and sometimes we were playing with something, but mostly we were in that dreamy sort of state. And that's the key moment, just something so simple like that. And then on the flip side, when I was teaching, did my placement teaching in class 4, and we went on a camp with the kids, the usual 5-day camp. And it was coming on evening. There was a time where there was nothing going on, no activities or programs. And so I got out a book I was reading, and sat down, and it was nearly sunset, so just that dusk sort of moment. It was really nice. I found a nice little spot where I could just sit and read. And another boy came over, he got his book, he saw what I was doing, got his book out and sat next to me. And the book I was reading, I wasn't really into it. I was just, you know, it was The Golden Light, I think. And I was reading it, but just being there and just enjoying that moment. And this boy was sat next to me. He did the same for like an hour or so. We weren't talking or engaging, but we were just sitting together, enjoying as the sun went down. And then at the end of that 10-week placement, it was a really lovely experience, because we sat in a circle and each child said, "Oh, Jake, I really liked how you played games," or "I really liked how you taught that lesson about the animals," or whatever it was. And this boy says, I remember sitting with you at that camp, and just for that hour. And it was really lovely. That was the main thing I remember. It was really beautiful. And that was 11 weeks prior, you know, and that was the key moment of all the things I did, you know, all the lessons I brought or content I brought or songs or games or whatever, just sitting down with him, reading the story, not even to him, just, you know, we were separate. We had our own stories. We were just experiencing that moment. And that's as simple as it can be, really. And then, so it got us thinking how to bring this into a practice where you can get to those moments more regularly with your children. And so you're connecting with your inner child, and then being able to connect with your own child or family. And when you're in that zone, it's like being in the flow. And for me, I just wanted to share my process. What I'm sort of working on now is at one point, there's an element of respect on one hand. So you know, I sort of think of a circle or of a clock face, if you like. At 3 o'clock, there's this element of respect. Reverence is another word for respect, or Carol mentioned wonder. So being amazed or wondered or you know, engaged and respectful of the person or being in front of you, and really engaging on that level as people, you know, as human beings. There's that level that that sort of like a gateway towards connectedness, if you like, at number 3. And then at 6 o'clock, you've got this idea of acknowledgement or sympathy as well. And the acknowledgement part is when you're actually taking in what that child is experiencing. That's where you're getting to this connectedness with the child. So you're acknowledging where the child's at and trying to sympathize with the way they might be experiencing that moment. And that could be in any form. It could be a tantrum, or it could be just that they want to sit with you for a while, but you might need to do the dishes, or it might be that they really need to go out, but they don't want to get dressed to go out. You know, all the little things that happen in parenting life. So acknowledgement is down there at 6 o'clock, and then that leads to 9 o'clock over here in the circle, where you've got empathy. And this is where you can say, I can see that you really don't want to get dressed to go out. I totally get it. You know, pajamas are comfortable, they're warm. You know, you really embody that. You can experience the warmth of their pajamas. You can experience the fact that they don't want to take them off to get other clothes on, which are cold. You know, my daughter said that today. She's like, I don't want that shirt on, it's cold. I was like, it is, yeah, sure, it is kind of cold. Yeah, why would you put that on? You know, so I pretended to warm it up with my hands. But, you know, that's part of it, is to really empathize. And that can be on any topic or any subject or whatever it is. I can tell that you don't want me to go to work because, you know, I've been at work all week and you just want to spend some time with me. And that can be painful for adults to empathize with, because that's a feeling that, and it brings up so much, you know, guilt or anxiety or a feeling of lack, or, you know, not being perfect, or abandonment either. It brings up all these kinds of feelings, which we usually try and not feel, you know, we try and avoid. But if you can really engage with that and take it on, then you can move through empathy to find what Carol calls love in action. So you can find the right action to take which is guided by love, and includes all the things all the journey that you've just been on. And then what you do with the child, or the words you say, or the action you take, will be true and real and to the moment, and for excuse me, and specific for that child in that moment, or the family. You'll know that it's the right thing because you'll get a bit of a buzz. And that's where I sort of like to think of it like a flow form. And if you don't know what flow form is, it's if you just Google biodynamic flow form, it's a biodynamic agriculture practice where you take water and you sort of spin it like this. I'll do it slower, like that. Right, and it energizes the water, and then it moves on, and it goes into another little flow form where it does this, and it energizes it and moves on. But you're basically energizing water, which is a great thing to think about anyway. And so when you're in that flow and you're taking this practice, then you sort of build on this feeling of love in action or truth, and the right things come at the right time. Like you'll say the right things at the right time without thinking about it. You'll do the right things at the right time. And then you'll find a flow with the family, which makes up for a beautiful day or a beautiful week, a beautiful month. And the challenging thing that we're talking about today is trying to find that flow or maintain that flow with all these boulders or rocks that people keep throwing in there, or dams that people keep on making. They make a dam here, and you've got to try and make the flow stronger to push through that bit of the dam. So yeah, I think now more than ever, it's really important to find that flow and energize it. And I feel like that's what you're doing, Melissa, is that you're energizing this movement. You've started the flow form, which is really energizing for Carol and I, and for I imagine for lots of parents out there who need the energy right now.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much for what you both shared. It's amazing. And what you've just shared, Jake, leads me actually to a story I would love to share, which I feel like would be very beneficial, maybe potentially to people as well, because of what everyone's experiencing. I had a job a couple of years ago where I had 3 children, 2 days a week, 2 10-hour days a week, a baby, 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And the previous year, the 6-year-old was in kinder, so we only had to get everyone ready for one drop off. And we were in such a beautiful routine, and we had such a beautiful rapport. It didn't even cross my mind that in the new year, that now that the 6-year-old, well, she was now 6, is in prep, and the 4-year-old is now in kinder, that the experience would be any different than the beautiful flow it had been the previous year. So I turned up to they'd had their first 2 drop-off days with mum and dad, and I was doing the 3rd day. And I hadn't even considered that they might have anxiety about it, about their new routines and their new structure and their new positions. Anyway, so, I went through our usual, we had our breakfast, and then I asked them to put their uniforms on, and they just flat out refused. They were giggling and they were running around and playing chasey and, taking off their pajamas so that they didn't have any clothes on, and they're going, "Chase us, Mel." They're going, "Come on, play chasey." They're going, "Chase us, Mel." And I'm like, we're already a few minutes late. And I myself was starting to get like the anxiety. And no, but we're going to be late. And I was like, but no. And I noticed that I was having a very triggered experience by them not complying and falling into what I thought and felt they should be doing. And initially I tried to be a little firmer, we need to get ready, we need to get there on time. And that made them get louder and sillier, and gigglier. So I went, okay. And then I tried to explain why we needed to be on time, forgetting that a 4-year-old and 6-year-old have no concept of time and don't care. And that didn't work either. And I decided to just surrender to what was going on and decide that it didn't matter what time. I decided, you know what? We'll get there when we get there. And I sat down, and they started plaiting my hair, like trying to plait my hair. And I realized as I sat down and surrendered and they started doing my hair that thoughts I was having about, oh, but Charlotte's going to walk in late to, her first week of prep and everyone's going to be looking at her, I realized that was me. I went, oh, that's not, she doesn't look very anxious about, this is my anxiety. And I realized that was my thoughts about me walking into class late. And I surrendered to, me surrendering allowed me to make that connection and have that realization and release it. And once I realized that and released it, and then I said, okay, after you do my hair, how about you put your uniforms on? They went, okay. It shifted like that, because I wasn't operating from that space of anxiety anymore, and I was owning my own trigger. It was opportunity to release it and allow myself to become the safe container for the children again, because obviously whilst I'm having this experience, I'm not the safe container. It was such a huge moment for me, that learning and connecting with my inner child, like you've talked about, Carol. And this is probably a common experience, I imagine, right now, being at home in the four walls together with the limitations, and there's more opportunity for having our stuff triggered, and more, the temptation to want to be in control is probably stronger as well, to get things back in order so that we feel like we know what's happening and we feel like we're in control. But I found that doing the opposite is what allowed me to get back into the driver's seat and in control, so to speak. And so maybe what we could, did you guys want to add anything before I move on to our next?
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Just as you were talking, and when Jake finished, what popped up for me was the important step of forgiveness. Is, like what you were saying, Melissa, such a beautiful story and picture. And how many millions of times do we go through that with children? And this thing about trying to control the uncontrollable. And what's driving you is the anxiety based on your own experience. You actually want to protect them from your own experience that you had. You want to protect the little girl from coming in late at school and everyone's shaming her or whatever, or the teacher. And so it comes from a good place, actually. Your intention is one of protection, but then it immediately slips into control. And then whatever this child is doing is sabotaging your control. And so I think the little thing that I hear, I think, happen for you, and what we need to make space for is to forgive ourselves for both things. Forgiving ourselves for maybe making the mistake when we were little, which got us into trouble, but also forgive ourselves for feeling like we want to be in control, but we're not. So it's like both ways that you look. It's like, I'm in this stuff. It's really hard. I acknowledge it. There's a lot of pain in me. I love this child. I want to protect the child. I wish she would stop doing that, but I understand it's because it's unsettling me. I forgive myself for that. So you've got to go through that whole thing and then say, okay, so now I'm bare, now I'm naked, lost all the protection I had. What needs to happen? And that's when you surrender. You got nothing to lose anymore because you've lost it all anyway. So I think that element of forgiveness is so vital to us being able to transform things. Yeah. Again and again. Yeah.
Definitely. And the funny thing is, we got there. I'll just mute you so we don't have the, yeah. And we were late, but so was everyone else, because it's the first week of prep. It's like what really matters, And what else we wanted to move towards discussing today, and connecting with and thinking about was connecting with the vision of the dream of what it is, what our vision is for the future. What sort of world do we want to create, and for the children? Like when we connect with our inner child, what sort of world do we want to experience and create? And how can we, first of all, how can we make space for that vision, or connect with that vision that's already within us, even if you maybe don't realize it? It's maybe there waiting to be acknowledged. And then also, how can we practically connect with it, like Jake has talked about in one of our chats so beautifully, bringing it forward to start being experienced now. For me, maybe I can start. Part of the reason I actually created the Australian Natural Nanny Network is because of that vision for the future, because the way that I operate and the way that I work with children is in a way that I feel has actually been very intimately linked with my own inner journey of transformation and development, and connecting with the kind of life I want to live and the kind of world I want to live in. And that flows through to the way I work with children. So empowering them to connect with who they are and what's most important to them and what they're most passionate about. And I feel that the more we're able to raise children in this way, the more impact we have on the kind of world we're co-creating. And that world, my vision of the world that I would love to be living in, is one where we are the freedom of the expression of our humanity. And that every person on the planet is connected with their mission and their vision and their sense of purpose, and are doing exactly what they feel most fulfilled by. Yeah, that's really it for me. And having this discussion is part of pulling that forward.
Can I jump in, and then Carol, you go? Yeah. There's a, I think, yeah, what you're talking about, Melissa, there's a prefigurative practice in the feminist world where we look at utopia, yeah, and we bring it forward to now. And I guess part of that is having a shared vision, or, you know, of what that utopia is. So, you know, individually, but then sharing that with each other, and finding, you know, oh, you have this vision too, or, and actually it's the realization, deeper realization is that it's a human vision that we all share at a deeper level. And then working out the barriers to have that happen, and you know, to make it happen now. And you can, the tricky bit there is that you can get bogged down in the barriers. You know, you can find, oh, there's a law against that, so we better not do that, or we better spend the next 10 years fighting against that law so we can do that thing. But actually prefigurative is doing it now, you know, not regardless of the law exactly, but doing it now, having those vision come alive right now, whatever form that takes. And then as the barriers or blockages or oppression comes up, then you're reflecting that barrier against this utopian vision, and then the barriers lose their power. And I hope that's not the best way of explaining it, but this is the way we're moving through this podcast, is to bring these ideas up and to crystallize these dreams into a reality together. And I think that's the idea, is that if the listeners can comment or chime in on how they can see their utopia come into existence now, to help us to make it happen, to re-energize after all the restrictions and oppression that we've been experiencing, to get back to that shared vision. And the other thing that comes up for me in this is this hope, which Rudolf Steiner talks about, of moving towards this idea of a soul consciousness. So moving away from an I consciousness and acting as an individual, like the iPad and the iMac and the Mikey and the there's so many marketing things that, just for you, tailor-made for you. But moving away from that to having this soul consciousness, this is my utopian vision, a soul consciousness where I am empathizing with Carol and Melissa and the people tuning in and the people in this house. And, you can just make bubbles upon bubbles of how you're tuning into how things are happening right now. And we've already got this. Actually, it's Friday today when we're recording. And you can tell it's Friday, even though I haven't been, I had to double check because I hadn't been keeping track of the calendar. I was like, it feels like Friday. Is it Friday? Oh yeah, it's Friday. You can tell it's Friday because there's less emails that come through, because everyone else is like, it's Friday. You're not starting a project on Friday necessarily. I'm not sending emails with, can you get back to me on this data analysis or whatever on Friday. That's just not etiquette. You can tell it's Friday. The other thing, you can always tell when it's a public holiday. I mean, there's obvious signs like there's less cars on the road, but you can tell that everyone is chilling out, in your area. Or especially when you remember in the first, in March when it first came on the news about the virus, how much anxiety was in the air. It was super strong, and it was impossible not to feel it. There's just this fear. And by now, we've come to get to know it a bit better. And stage 4 has been more like less fear and anxiety, and more like resignation. Yeah, and that's felt as well. So I can already feel that soul consciousness developing, in that we can feel what's happening on a community level. And the idea is that we can start to expand that to a global level where decisions are easily made based on how we're feeling as a collective human species, and then connecting it to the earth and the universe and all those things as well. So that's my vision, is this soul consciousness where we don't, I can empathize so deeply with others, and especially children, that it just becomes natural what the next step is to take, or the decision or the words at that moment. It just becomes natural or intuitive, which is even better. Yeah.
Wow. Jake, it's so inspiring what you're saying. And Melissa, I mean, I'm spinning out in so many ways. I think for me, again, because I love bringing it down into something again, because that's the practice, is how do we flip it? How do we turn it around? So the one thing is this, we have to change direction. We have to change our focus. And our focus for the last, I don't know, it really was since the industrialization of education, even, where we looked at product and production and what's the outcome and what do we want. In fact, who do we want to work and how do we want them to work? And we're looking at the situation that we need scientists, we need mathematics, we need whatever it is. And we've got to a stage in life where it's absolutely impossible to see what next year will need in terms of working people. What is really clear, and it has been clear for a long, long time, is that we have no idea. And really what we need is we need people who are flexible, agile, fit, enthusiastic, can get hold of anything, can be creative in the moment, and basically be what you're saying, Melissa, be themselves. Because if you're not yourself, then who the heck are you? So that's the starting point. So if you're not yourself, you're lost already. So not lose ourselves. So we have to change our focus from outcomes to the human being. And what does the human being need to flourish? I mean, you talk about that a lot. And so I think what's really important is that, so there are two things I want to add, is that there's simple things, and we came to this in South Africa in our pilot work that we did. What do we need so that children can flourish in the country in all kinds of settings, all different settings, very diverse settings, also from wealthy to absolute extreme poverty. And what we came up with as a very practical word and name for a whole strategy with a budget was called, it was a Zulu word that means acts of kindness. It's unbelievable. And they have one word for it, and it's called umusa. If I have umusa, I have a place where there are acts of kindness. That's where they live. So wherever we are, in whatever setting, there are acts of kindness, which means exactly what you were saying at the beginning. We want children to be in child-friendly environments. If children are happy, then obviously we'll be happy. Because if it's a child-friendly environment, I'm relaxed, I'm at ease, I am happy. So I think this whole, we can say it's a huge dream. Yes, it is, but it's actually small acts of kindness that get it going, real kindness. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, and it's related to you, Jake, what you were saying about your prefigured vision. And there's another word for that, and there's a whole practice that started about probably 30, 40 years ago called appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry came out of organization development experiences where, you have an organization, you call a consultant in because you've got real problems, and they come and they say, what's the problem? And then the whole group go, oh my God, where do I even start? And there's conflict, and there's this, and there's that. And, by the end of the 4 hours, everybody's lying on the floor exhausted, and, they don't want to talk anymore. Let's not talk about it. And so the innovation of this process, appreciative inquiry, was to recognize that the first question is a fateful question. So if you say, what's the problem? That's where you go. That's what you start with, and that's how you end, is what's the problem? And you lose all the energy of the group. So what they started off, and it's really worthwhile looking at it because you can do it in your small family, is, okay, so can you remember a time when it felt really good to be in this company? Can you tell a story? Tell the story with the details of that moment where you just felt, I'm just in the best place ever. I love being here. I am in the right place. So that's how the question is, can you remember a time when you felt most happy in a situation? And from that to then create, okay, well, if that's what made you happy, can you imagine the company creating spaces like that? So you build the vision from that. And then exactly, Jake, what you said. So what are the barriers to getting there? And what you have is an energetic group, energized, inspired. Their personal stories have been heard, so they figure in the picture. They are standing there, they're acknowledged, they listen to, and they are empowered to then create the vision and knock down those barriers one by one, So I think that's a very important strategy that we can use practically. Yeah.
Nice. Are you is that good, Mel? Are you going to do a wrap up sort of?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly a couple of things that came up when each of you so beautifully spoke. The hurdles or the challenges that we're kind of having thrown our way at this time, I really feel that these challenges are actually strengthening us. We're getting stronger each time. Yes, it can be intense. Yes, it can be deeply confronting. But once it's such an opportunity to shift that blockage within, and then how stronger I personally have felt as a result of having worked through each challenge connects me I feel even more fueled each time to keep going with my mission and my vision. And something else you mentioned, Carol, I've lost it. What did I want to? Oh, it's gone now. But there was something really beautiful that Carol and Jake, you both mentioned before we started recording. Was Carol talked about that she's been dancing in the park before she jumped on our call today, and Jake you spoke of a beautiful vision of wanting to go out with your instruments and play music. And I see these simple, like you talked about, it's almost like an act of kindness or an act of just human expression. I feel like something so simple like that is what can be another way of pulling that vision forward, because it gives everyone else permission. Like to see each other in our human expression at a time where it feels like our human expression is so suppressed. It feels even more important to be sharing our spark and our light so that we can inspire others to connect with their spark and their light. Maybe they're also wanting to dance in the park or play an instrument and going, no, I can't do that. So even more so to break through those barriers ourselves, and strengthen one another through that act. Strengthen ourselves and one another. Like tuning into that soul consciousness like you're talking about, Jake. That was such a beautiful chat. Thank you so much, both of you. It's so exciting to just, be able to dive deep with people that are so passionate about their work and are so, like, no matter what, how connected you both are to your vision and your mission is just so important right now. I feel more than ever. So thank you both so much for the work that you're doing and for your determination and your strength and coming together with me to have this discussion.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks for hosting us and and being the energy. It's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. I felt you were very enabling. You've enabled this to come through, and that's a very special energy and offering that you have provided. So thanks so much. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you. And we'll see you for part 2 next week.
Yeah, great.